Hello everybody. In this video we're going to be learning about equality. So first of all, what is equality? Well, there are a lot of different definitions of equality. So one of them would be equality means treating all people the same way, regardless of their differences. So that means no matter who you are, where you're from, anything about you, we treat you the exact same. But another definition of equality tells us something a little bit different. And it says that equality means having the same status. That's like who you are in your society and what people think of you, your rights, and opportunities. And when we look at this bit about opportunities, we start to realize that equality doesn't always mean treating all people the same way all of the time. And there's a picture here that will explain what I mean. So if you look at the picture on the left, these children could not see the game because there was a fence in front of them. So each of them was given a box that's the same size to stand on. So in this way, each of the children is treated exactly the same. They're given the exact same box. But what do you notice? The child on the right, who was shorter than the others, even though he got the same as the others, he is not equal. He still can't see the game. When we look at the middle picture, the child on the left has no box, but he can see the game. And the child on the right has two boxes, and he can see the game. So this is about giving people perhaps different treatment to make sure that they all end up with the same opportunities. And in the last picture we can see, well here, the thing that was stopping the equality, which was the fence, is gone. So in fact, they don't need any box, they don't need any help. So this is a very important thing to think about when we look at equality, that treating everybody the exact same way often doesn't give us equality. Because, for example, if you came from a home where your parents earned lots of money and they bought you lots of books when you were a child, and when you went to school, you had somebody to pick you up from school and help you with your homework, it's going to be easier for you to do well in school than if you came from a family where people didn't have a lot of money and they weren't able to buy books, and where maybe their parents didn't have time because maybe they were working long hours in their jobs and they didn't have time to help them with homework. So you can see that in that example, that other person is kind of starting from a place that it's a bit harder than the first person. So they might need extra help to get to the same place. So that's the difference between what we call equality and equity. Equality kind of means giving everybody the same chance, and equity means, well, that's not really good enough. We need to make sure that everybody ends up at the same place at the end, and that might mean that some people need a little bit of extra help. Next, we're going to talk about what can stop or prevent equality. What are the barriers to equality? Well, the first one is what we call prejudice. Now, if you look at that word prejudice, it has the prefix pre, which means before, and judice, which means to judge. So prejudice means that you judge somebody, or you decide that you know all about them before you've even met them. And this can often be called stereotyping as well. So an example of prejudice would be somebody saying, Irish people aren't very serious, they prefer having the crack to working. So maybe this person saw a movie or a TV program with lots of Irish people all having the crack, and they decided, well, all Irish people are like that, even though maybe they don't know any Irish people. And even if they know one, they certainly don't know all Irish people. So that's what we call a stereotype, when you decide, oh, I know everything about that group of people, even though, how could you? You can't possibly know everybody in a group of people, can you? Older people are weak and frail. They get tired easily. Again, here's a stereotype. You know, this person who's saying this, maybe they have a grandparent or a great-grandparent who is older, who is maybe gets tired easily, who maybe has some health difficulties. But that doesn't mean that all older people are that way. And it's wrong of us to kind of make a blanket statement, which is when we say something and say, well, that's all of those people. Men are better at science and maths than women. Now, this is one that isn't even a stereotype because I don't think you'd find lots of examples of this to be true. But that is definitely a view that people had in the past where they thought that men were more capable of certain things than women. So this is prejudice. It's when you think about a group and it's like you're saying, I know it all already. The next one here is discrimination, which means treating people differently in an unfair way based on who they are. And often discrimination follows prejudice. So if somebody decides, well, I know what that group of people are all about, then that affects the way they treat them. So an example of discrimination would be, let's say a company refuses to give a person a job because they're saying, you're too old, you're going to be tired all the time, you're maybe going to leave this job next year because you're going to retire. So they're discriminating against that person. That person could actually be the best person for the job, but the company isn't giving them a chance because of their prejudice about old people. A restaurant refuses to give a table to people of a certain race, saying you people or people like you will run off without paying. Now, of course, this is very ridiculous. We could never say by looking at somebody, by looking at their race, that we knew that they were going to run off without paying. But this is a type of discrimination that can and does happen. Another one, government forbids women from voting, saying women aren't capable of making decisions like this. Again, this is ridiculous. There is no difference in intelligence or capability between women and men. This is scientifically proven. However, in some places in the world, and in many of the places like Ireland and Europe and America in the past, this was what people believed. So women were discriminated against. So those are our barriers for people achieving equality, is prejudice and discrimination. So what can help? So how do we protect people's equality? How do we stop people from being discriminated against or treated with prejudice? Well, in Ireland, we have a series of acts. An act is just a different word for a law. So we have a series of laws called the Equal Status Act. And a lot of European countries and other countries around the world have similar laws. And these are designed to stop people being discriminated against. The reason it's called acts, plural, is because they started in the year 2000 and then they added and added and added other bits to make it, I suppose, broader and more fair and to make it protect more people from discrimination. So in Ireland today, there are 9 separate grounds on which it is illegal to discriminate. So you cannot discriminate against somebody, you cannot treat them differently because of their gender, their marital status, their family status, their age, disability, their race, orientation, their religious belief, or if they are a member of the travelling community. So all of those groups are protected by law and you cannot discriminate against somebody, you cannot treat somebody differently based on any of those. Now that we know a little bit about what equality is, I want to find out more about what you already know. So this week, we're going to do a project. So you probably already know of people who have fought for equality. I know lots of you have often told me about figures in history who fought for equality for people who were being discriminated against. So for this week, I want you to pick somebody, and they could be from history or they could be somebody who's alive today and still fighting for equality today, because there's lots of great campaigners out there. So pick somebody who fights for equality. And you can have a look at the 9 grounds there when you're thinking about it. So are you going to pick somebody who fights for gender equality or somebody who has fought for racial equality? So pick one of those and pick a figure who has fought for equality there and do a project on them. Okay, so that would mean you would have to give us background. You might have to tell us about where they're from, a little bit about their childhood, like we've learned about how to do when we do biographies. But I suppose this is a biography where the most important part and the biggest chunk of your writing is going to be about what did they do for equality. And as always, If you want to do this as a written project like an essay, that's fine. If you want to do a combination of writing and artwork and pictures, also fine. It can be a PowerPoint. It can be a recording of you speaking. It can be a video presentation. It can be a mix of all of those things. That's totally up to you. The only bit about it I'm going to give you the instruction is that it's about somebody who fought for equality. So it's like a biography, but focusing on their fight for equality. So I hope you enjoy researching that this week, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.